Newsweek article, October 22nd, 2010, said this: "The left is wrongly defending Islamism, an extremist and at times violent ideology, which it confuses with the common person's Islam, which I add is a religion, while the right is often wrongly attacking the Muslim faith, which it confuses with Islamism." Thank you guys for pointing that out this morning. I want to thank Mr. Bledsoe and Mr. Behe for sharing your stories of your sons. As a father of sons myself, my heart goes out to you.
Thank you.
I'm not aware of anyone on this side of the political spectrum that is attacking Islam, nor anyone wishing to limit anyone's First Amendment rights. But rather, I believe we are raising awareness of Islamism, a political ideology, and how that ideology is being used in this country. I am regularly astonished and outraged by this administration's continued failure to single out who our enemy is. Mr. Bledsoe said in his testimony that there's a big elephant in the room, but our society continues not to see it. And you say that this wrong is caused by political correctness and even political fear. I've got a slide on the board, and I know it's going to be hard to read, but if you'll look at the 9/11 Commission and the number of times enemy, jihad, Muslim Brotherhood, Al-Qaeda, Hezbollah, Hamas are mentioned. And then if you look at the FBI counterterrorism analytical lexicon and the National Intelligence Strategy, you'll see zeros beside the fact that they don't mention enemy, jihad, Muslim Brotherhood, Al-Qaeda. It's an astonishing contrast. But what I came here today to comment on and delve into is a completely different line of thought. And is this: an issue that is of particular concern to me and my constituents, and that is the threat of Sharia law to the United States Constitution. The Center for Strategic Budget and Budgetary Assessments produced a report in 2008 on the global war on terrorism, authored by Robert Martinage, currently Deputy Undersecretary of the Navy. In that report, Martinage states that the centerpiece of al-Qaeda's strategy for the long war is exploiting Muslims' sense of individual religious obligation by declaring a defensive jihad against the West and apostate regimes. The Organization of Islamic Conference, representing 57 member states, declares on its website that it has a considerable weight within these institutions where it makes others listen to the voice of Islamic Ummah and presents the image of moderate Islam, tolerant, open to dialogue, and bearing the message of peace, harmony, and solidarity between men. But according to the OIC's own Cairo Declaration on Human Rights and Islam, Article 25, it clearly states that Islamic Sharia is the only source of reference for the explanation or clarification of any of the articles in this declaration. As the United States Constitution is the law of this land, any attempt to subvert it amounts to sedition. I took an oath to uphold the Constitution against enemies, both foreign and domestic, and it is my desire to see multiple hearings, Mr. Chairman, not only here in this committee, but also in House Armed Services Committee, Intelligence Committee, Foreign Affairs Committee, Judiciary Committee, examining the role that Islamic doctrine plays in the radicalization process, assessing the degree to which jihadist organizations, such as Muslim Brotherhood and its front organizations, influence our American Muslim communities. So I want to ask this to Dr. Jasser. Do you feel that the U.S. government has done an adequate job learning about Islam and how Islamic doctrines affect the behavior of and community norms of Muslims residing in America? And how does Islamic doctrine and Sharia law shape the responsiveness of local U.S. Muslim communities to law enforcement efforts that target Islamic jihad?
Thank you, Congressman Duncan. I think that's a wonderful question, and I think just like we talked about, there's various forms of Islam around the world. Sharia also means very different things to different Muslims. My home, it's a private thing. Do I want it in government? Absolutely not. That really is the doctrine of the enemy. They want to create an Islamic State. There is no way any concept that the Brotherhood has of an Islamic State could ever be a great ally of the United States, because there's two different lenses through which we see the world. We're allies with other democracies that are secular, but to ever be an ally with an Islamic State based in Sharia would be impossible. And I think ultimately this is the problem, is that, and this is why I provided a list of scholars in my testimony that are based with the Assembly of Muslim Jurists. These scholars are still based in Islamic law from the 13th, 14th century, from people like Ibn Taymiyyah and others. They have not created a new school of thought. And what happens is that intellectual Islam or authoritative Islam still has not absorbed the ideas of a Western society based under God rather than under Islam. And our forefathers went through this whole discussion of not having the word Christian in our founding documents. The Islamic community has not gone through that discussion and that evolution, and we're avoiding it. We need to address it, and we need to address the fact that the government we seek, we don't only accept the laws of this land as a minority, but even if we were a majority, we'd want the same laws. That hypocrisy is part of the world many Muslims live in. They absorb the laws of the land as a minority, but they have a doctrine that they believe in, that they follow within their own organizations, that's based on Islamic law, which allows a duality that I think affects their identification with this society. And not all mosques, I know many mosques that don't teach that. They're looking for the right books. I mean, if you go, and I would tell all of you to go to the Islamic book services.
Time of the gentleman has expired.
And you won't find too much reform work in that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yield to